Hello and welcome to the Superposition Guys podcast. My name is Yuval, and my guests today are Suvi Lampila and Miikka Sainio from SSH Communications Security, a cyber defense company. SSH, known for inventing the SSH protocol, focuses on secure communications and access management. They discuss SSH's efforts in integrating post-quantum cryptography into their products, elaborating on the challenges of updating operational technology for quantum safety and the importance of pragmatic solutions. They emphasize the need for market education, the urgency of preparing for the quantum threats, their concerns about the future impact of quantum computing on security, and much more. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Hello, Suvi. Hello, Miikka. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Wonderful. So, Miikka, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Miikka Sainio. I'm the CTO of SSH Communications Security. We are a European cyber defense company, and we are based in Helsinki, Finland. We do have customers all over the world and offices in New York and Singapore. Our founder, Tatu Ylönen, invented the SSH protocol in 1995, actually, almost 30 years ago, and then built the company around it. And nowadays, as people may know, SSH protocol is one of the fundamental building blocks of the modern internet. So we build secure communication, access management, and key management products for human-to-human, human-to-machine, and machine-to-machine communications. And with me, I have Suvi Lampila.
Hi. Yeah, so my name is Suvi Lampila. I'm fellow at SSH, and I've been with the company for over 20 years. And for the past few years, I've been working on post-quantum cryptography-related things within our products to make sure that our solutions are quantum safe for the future.
A company that's 30 years old is a little bit unusual on this podcast. And obviously, 30 years ago, you were not involved in quantum. When did the need for quantum safe security come up, and when did you start working on it?
It was kind of a research project at first, and I can't remember exactly when, but I do remember in 2019 when things started to heat up, so that there was more pressure from our customer base to start working on the solution. So it was kind of something to tinker on, but then we kind of started to take it seriously at that point. And already in 2021, we had our NQX, which is an IPsec-based network encryptor solution available on the market in the Northern Europe. And then a few years ago, our Dectia solution, that is a secure shell-based solution, had its first PQC algorithms, and then our other product lines followed suit the same year. So we're kind of in the front runs of trying to put this into actual production in our customer base.
Yeah, also back in the day, we were one of the founding members of PQC Finland, which was a kind of a cooperation between companies for post-quantum cryptography.
And now we're part of the consortium that is led by the National Institute of Standards and Technology in PQC migration. So there's a bit over 20 organizations globally trying to figure out how we're going to do this migration to PQC in practice. So that's where we are right now.
What is the state of education of the market? I'm guessing that 10 years ago, customers were not really aware of the store now, decrypt later concern. But when you speak with customers today, are they generally worried about that? Or is there still a lot of market education that needs to be had?
But I think you're head on the nail there, that it's a major thing to educate this stuff, because there's quite a lot of misunderstandings of like, how do we transition and what needs to be done at what stage? So the retroactive attacks on the key agreement algorithms of the current like Diffie-Hellman and elliptic curve key difference, that has to be protected first. So we need the Crystal Skyper key encapsulation mechanism in place already now. And we did ourselves a bit of a disservice by naming this post-quantum cryptography. That implies that something happens after the quantum era, when there are things that need to happen well before the cryptographically relevant quantum computer comes along. So there's the education side of it that needs to be tackled. And oddly enough, this sort of like recording attack did kind of enter the minds of some of our customers already a long time ago, because we have things in place within the protocols that are not so much quantum safe, but they're kind of quantum resilient. So for instance, we do read keys frequently, so that every gigabyte or every hour in Tectia, we do the exchange the session keys again. And that sort of thing is there, and it helps in somewhat with the recording attack. But at the end of the day, we need to replace all those old algorithms with the quantum safe alternatives, and getting that thing going is a thing that should be happening already now, and we cannot really wait for the final standards and everything to be in place to get a move on. So it has to be an incremental process, and communicating that is also a bit of a uphill battle.
Yeah, it's an education we have to kind of impose on the customers, because people don't really understand that it's they have to consider all the secrets that they have today. Are they also secrets 10 years from now? So, and it's bad also in a sense that coming from a small country. So who are the players who are going to have the quantum computers first? They are going to be large nation states and large companies, which poses a really asymmetric kind of a power setup in the world, in a sense that the smaller countries or smaller companies will probably kind of lose their secrets first. So people need to prepare.
Let's assume I'm a multinational bank and I contacted you a couple of years ago. I was aware of the concern. I want to upgrade the security of my network. How does the process look like, and how long would it take until I'm relatively comfortable that I'm protected against future quantum attacks?
And that's an excellent question, and a very difficult one to answer. It depends very much on what kind of industry you are. So on the financials, they are quite regulated already, and they have certain things in place. So they, for instance, might already have a fairly extensive knowledge of what kind of cryptography is used within their network, and mechanisms in place of doing software upgrades rapidly, isolating their critical data from the not so critical data. So they have like the understanding what they need to be focusing on. The problem is that pretty much everything has to be upgraded. There is very little that withstands this thing, that there's so many places where asymmetric encryption is used. It might not call itself public key cryptography, but it is in its heart. So the steps look kind of easy from the key exchange side of things. So when we upgrade the software first, it's kind of under the hood upgrade when we replace the algorithms with like Crystal Skyper and key exchange algorithms. But then when we move further to the authentication side of things, then things start to look even more muddier, that how we're going to be able to replace the keys that are used for authentication. And for that, you need very full inventories of what is used. And our experience has been, when we have had this universal key manager product on the market for, I think, for many years now, is that most of the time even those organizations that should be on top of the game don't necessarily know what they have in their environment when it comes to those. So it's a bit of a surprise to them when we go in and start looking at. And then that's also, like, from our point of view, we're looking at certain narrow aspects of this. So we're mostly dealing on the application level, apart from the IPsec product that's on the network level, but this kind of touches on every single thing. So it will x-ray the whole organization. And I think the best organizations take the approach that they build teams that have the responsibility, if not the expertise, for this P2C migration, and then they interact with various different teams within the organization to get their ducks in order.
Yeah, it's really difficult to talk about timelines because the infrastructures can be so massive. So there may be tens of thousands, or if not hundreds of thousands of hosts and millions of SSH keys, for example. So scanning that environment, discovering what the key quality is, for example, and then what transitive trusts, etc., exist in the infrastructure. And first of all, taking that under control, and then perhaps upgrading that to quantum safe cryptography. It is a process. When it's complete, yeah.
And then in the past, when we have done these like transition projects, for instance, from SHA-1 to SHA-2, there has been like great plans how we're going to get this done very quickly, and it hasn't really happened in the time frame that the organizations have put in place for themselves. So there's still some that are struggling with that transition. And unfortunately, with the PQC transition, it needs to happen more quickly because that attack there is retroactive. So we don't have that much time to dilly-dally on that side. But then I guess we could say that it has been a dress rehearsal doing those projects. And then some lessons learned from there is that you might have some setups where you think that the system is not going to be itself upgraded to PQC algorithms. For instance, it might have some old TLS 1.2 or older stuff, and kind of prerequisite to get the TLS side upgraded to PQC is that you have to be using TLS 1.3. And it's a big jump like to do that if your applications need to be upgraded with that also. So we have made these recommendations and made it easier within our products to actually do tunneling of other TCP/IP applications or tunneling with the IPsec of any network protocol, so that you can continue to use the existing vulnerable classical stuff, but then tunnel that with the quantum safe tunnels to get you over to the point where you might at some point decommission the old systems, or maybe get yourself a little bit more breathing time to get the upgrades within those specific applications that might be like customers self-created things, like Frank sometime in some years past has done something. So we brought stuff, anything from IBM mainframes all the way up to the latest Kubernetes stuff. We're kind of able to tackle that.
It sounds like there's enough business for the next 30 years for the company.
Hopefully, that's the plan at least. In a way, we're going back into the beginning in a funny way, that we were one of the first to try to make internet secure back in the 90s. And we were doing these sort of tunneling things already at that point for protocols that didn't have any security whatsoever placed in them. Oddly enough, there's still to this day stuff that don't have any security built into them itself. And now there's going to be even more when we have to tackle the classical stuff as well.
Yeah, we like more recently we have had the chance to work with a lot of companies in operational technology or OT. And in OT, the software stacks or the devices themselves they have really long lifetimes, and they don't update the devices that often because of various reasons, but also because perhaps the updates aren't even available. So in those cases, to be quantum safe, the only way, or perhaps to be safe in general, the only way is to encapsulate or tunnel those connections using quantum safe algorithms. So we really have to be quite pragmatic with our customers, how to make them safe.
And something that I might like to point out, since your audience mostly deals with the quantum side of things, like we're talking about post-quantum cryptography, which is really just mathematics to tackle the quantum threat that the quantum computers, when they get to the high fidelity gates and large enough systems, or threatening our current encryption. So this is like in our view, like the best and the fastest, the most economic way to get to the quantum safe state in time to be able to protect these connections. And then when it comes to the authentication side, like the signature algorithms, it really is the only option on that side as well. So yeah, we're a big proponent of this, apart from compared to some other solutions that are out there that at some time in the future might provide some relief. But right now, this is what we're recommending, and it's not just us, it's mostly governmental organizations. That's their recommendation as well, that they want this thing sorted out in an economical, viable way. So.
And it's nice to see that Google and Cloudflare and other large internet players are also jumping into the bandwagon and implementing DLS stacks which are quantum safe. But of course, that only helps with certain use cases.
Yeah, very rarely do you get to start from a clean slate in large organizations. So you still have things that need to be able to be used safely right now in whatever the environment, whether it's in the cloud environment or on-premise environments.
Speaking of time, some data is more time sensitive or has a longer shelf life than others. I mean, an attacker might not care what I ordered in a restaurant a week ago, but may be interested in my life insurance policy or my health records. When you go to customers, what do you tell them about the timeline of when do you expect that quantum computers will be sufficiently strong to break encryption? So what time frame, what shelf life for data should they be worried about?
Well, we usually talk about years. So, but then I think we should already now move on from that conversation, like when we have sufficient enough of high fidelity gates and so forth, to the question that the data already exists now that you want to protect. So you have to start asking yourself, is it going to be a mere embarrassment or existential crisis if the confidentiality of that data is lost? So like you mentioned, health care records, there's a lot of stuff that there's no expiration date for that. It should be ideally kept confidential indefinitely. Then there are legislation side, that compliance requirements that make sure that you have to keep certain data safe for over 20 years or whatever it is. So, or it could be that the legislation is only that you have to worry about something like theoretically expires in 5 years, but in practice, that's not quite the case. For instance, the primary account numbers that are used in credit cards, they have to be kept secret. There's a mechanism of replacing that, but it's very costly and you don't really want to leak that because usually you want to just renew it to the same primary account number. So it really depends on the customer of their own, what kind of compliance requirements they have, when do they have to get a move on this. And it's a very difficult, it's almost impossible question to answer, what is the timeline. In certain scenarios, we're already too late. If you need something to be protected from that retroactive attack, you should have had this yesteryear.
Yeah, it's difficult to predict the future, and there's also the aspect that if an actor has sufficiently powerful quantum computer, when are they going to tell the world about it? So when do people actually know that there's such a threat which is active? So that's one thing. And then the inflection point might be quite fast. So for example, I couldn't imagine 4 or 5 years ago that the large language models are used in kind of such a context and such a way that they are used today and what they are capable of. So when things happen, they happen really quickly. So I suspect that the same will also apply to quantum computers once it happens.
And I think also one misconception is that we're waiting for the perfect implementation of the quantum computer, when as the threat to the current encryption is going to be, in my mind, the combination of the classical computing power with the supercomputers and the quantum computers coming together to wreak havoc. So there could be error correction done on the quantum computing side, but then as well optimization done on the classical computing side that might change things in a way. So, and then who knows, there might be somebody who comes up with the equally great, brilliant idea like Peter Shor did back in the day that kind of started the whole feasibility of breaking the asymmetric encryption with the quantum computer. And, it could be a kid who has been playing around with Qiskit these few years that comes up with something that speeds up things or just narrows down the search in a way that it becomes more feasible. So we're kind of racing both against the quantum computers and advances that can be made with the classical supercomputers. And the combination, like in Finland, we have now the third fastest supercomputer in the world is situated in Finland, and that has been connected with the baby quantum computer from IQM that the researchers can use for free, apply for time to use the combination. So this field is kind of moving fast where there's so much money put on the quantum computing side right now that I wish that some of it would be put also on this defending side of things in an equal measure.
I think the threat is well understood and the opportunity is obviously huge. So I'm guessing that there are many other companies that are looking to solve this problem. What is unique about the SSH solution?
Well, right now, the uniqueness is that it has been around and available for production already for a few years. So that's one aspect of it, that we're able to do it. We're able to put it into battle-tested solutions that have stood the test of time up till now, and have kind of like a holistic view in many ways when it comes to this. But I don't really see that we can tackle, even though we're like a well-established company, that any company that comes to you and says that they are able to solve this completely is really not telling the truth. This will require a lot of industry-wide effort to get, for instance, the authentication key side sorted out and all that. So I see it as a big push from the whole industry to get to the quantum safe world.
Yep. Having said that, we really do have a really strong stack in supporting customers from moving to from weak algorithms to quantum safe algorithms through SSH key management and then SSH client server solutions and our access management solutions, which are all quantum safe. So we have a kind of quite a complete solution for customers, starting from the discovery and ending to actual securing connections between different entities in the organization. And
in a way, it's not our first rodeo. Also. We've been through these sort of similar things before with the SHA-1 to SHA-2 migration and so forth. So hopefully that is something that will help us also this time around, that we will able to do timely things in a manner where it makes sense. And then I think like many of our largest customers benefit from the lessons learned that we get from the other customers. So there's also that the established customer base helps one another.
When you look around the world, do you see some countries that are taking this more seriously than others?
Well, I think the countries, at least the ones that I've visited and had some conversations in, we look at the NIST efforts of the standardization being very much like international effort, and there's many places have taken the stance that they'll wait and see what US does, what NIST recommends, and then take it from there. That's, for instance, how UK has positions itself, that they will follow NIST recommendations and so forth. Finland hasn't really have like a specific policy on this, but during that PQC Finland process, we did have a policy brief on it, and our recommendations are pretty much in line with what the NIST is saying. Apart from that, we do recommend the hybrid approach, which is combining the classical key exchange algorithms with the PQC algorithms for a time being. But then there are other, like the German BSI and the French ANSI, that recommend slightly different algorithms compared to the NIST. So there is a legislation push going in different parts of the world, but I would say that most likely these things, we don't necessarily get to see what is done on the national level. We do get to see the glimpse into the commercial space of things. So most are waiting for the NIST to finalize the standardization project, and following that, we do recognize in all that we need certain interoperability as well. So there is that good reasoning for it. That having said that, it doesn't mean that we can just lay low and wait for somebody else to figure these things out for you. So there needs to be certain things that organizations need to look at already at this stage, because the retroactive threat, for one. So we cannot just wait until everything is ready to get moving on with that.
From a business perspective, what are you worried about? What keeps you up at night?
Oh, what keeps me up at night? Well, there has been so many times now, even this past year, when there has been news about RSA 2048 being broken. And well, so far that hasn't been the case, but I'm kind of hoping that we get to that position that when that call comes in, I'm going to be able to confidently say that, we have moved on to post-quantum cryptography long ago. It doesn't concern us because of that. It's not used anymore. So my kind of concern is that something will cause an avalanche of things, that it will happen in an uncontrolled way, and I'm caught between a rock and a hard place with our customers in that sense. But at least we're working hard on trying to avoid that scenario.
Yeah, we are kind of proactively trying to encourage our customers or potential customers to upgrade their cryptography. But of course, if something happens quickly, like I hinted earlier, then the problem becomes that you need to support a massive amount of customers in a short period, and that's going to be a challenge.
Though, having said that, one thing that I kind of think in my own mind is that the chances are that we won't learn about the cryptographically relevant quantum computer. It's going to be a bit like Enigma back in the day, that whoever comes up with they're not going to reveal it to the world. They're going to let their own ships sink before they reveal. So maybe there's a museum like there's now in Bletchley Park in UK 50 years from now, and then we learn when these things actually were already operational. Yeah. But that's the thing. It probably might be that museum isn't open before my time is up on this planet, but hopefully we've taken that into consideration already before then.
And as we get to the end of our conversation today, I wanted to ask you a hypothetical, and perhaps Miikka, you could go first, and then Suvi. If you could have dinner with one of the quantum or security greats, dead or alive, who would that person be?
This is kind of a difficult one, but I think that for quantum mechanics, it would be David Deutsch, because it would be interesting to talk about the many worlds interpretation. And I don't know enough to have a view or belief in one direction or another, but it would be nice to learn or hear about his views.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of leaning toward a dinner party that I would really much like to invite Peter Shore to that, ask him to bring somebody he thinks would be great to have. And then this brilliant cryptographer, Maria Ice Cedar, who I had a pleasure to meet last year at one of these events in Forum Alpac, where we were speaking, that I would love her to be involved as well, because I have quite a bit of understanding right now of the post-quantum cryptography when it comes to the the asymmetric side of things, but she's working already on the symmetric, the future, the lightweight encryption algorithms that would replace then eventually symmetric stuff. So it would be lovely to get to see her again and ask her to bring other people into the party to discuss.
Wonderful. Suvi, Miikka, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.